Hello, and thank you for joining me, Gene King, on another new episode of the Mediums, Messages, and More podcast. On today's episode, we're going to take a look at and discuss CEO communications in an AI world. We are well into the era that mandates chief executive officers move out of the boardroom and the CEO office and into the public arena as the chief spokesperson, brand representative, and overall voice of the company. The days of the CEO hiding behind the door at headquarters is literally and figuratively over, and the demand for the chief executive to be accessible, informed, relatable, and able to communicate to different audiences various relevant messages a necessity today. Multiple recent surveys reinforce a strengthening trend in how the public views business and communications, with a caveat that in and outside of business. Now, today, the public view is increasingly contemptible. There's a very high level of distrust, as well as disinterest, along with a lack of a vital ingredient that is rapidly becoming mandated to generate credibility, and that is authenticity. Authenticity has quickly become the touchstone today, especially with the 25 years and younger demo, to secure a favorable standing with consumers. And it can be seen everywhere, including on the suddenly challenged social media world where interaction and engagement has become more challenging and risky. The numbers of influencers who are truly delivering meaningful returns to sponsors and retaining or growing followers for those clients are declining, in part to the inevitable fatigue of an established media channel, but mostly because of the over commercialization and commoditizing of their channels. And that has resulted in personality straying from their original character or value proposition to their audiences and misleading audiences about products or their use of them, and blurring what was once the clear line of not so commercial social pages and now affiliated in commercial podcasts or sponsored videos. In other words, they got too commercial and they became too much about the sell, and they appeared less than genuine, less than real. They became artificial. And speaking of artificial intelligence has quickly become the new spam. Let's face it, despite the billions of dollars already invested in this seemingly new, and I put that in air quotes, technology, because I believe more hype in reality than true, because AI has been around a long time, but in different forms. And the promises of how AI can help business first, and then people a distant second, like spam with an abundance or an overabundance of email, AI, artificial intelligence, has already hit that moment where the public increasingly unhappy with AI and the product and the quality and the overpromising related to it. The term AI slop is already sticking. Now, in addition to endless reports coupled with real life testimonies of how the technology has hurt so many people in so many lines of work, its overall quality in accuracy and in use in audio, video, and other forms of communications has created itself a subgenre of output that right now is less than appealing and is similar to cheap B movie studios in old Hollywood. Now, the new billionaires don't want you to hear that or read that, but the reality in the public is AI is quickly becoming questionable in its effectiveness, in its value, in its worth, and in its quality. Therefore, AI slop is the modern equivalent to the long standing spam, where once email was the end all and be all for marketing and advertising, political campaigns, promotional material, and then it became overused and overpromised. And now today, most people throw email in as spam to the point that we have spam folders and spam filters. And AI is quickly getting there, as the term AI slop is that equivalent to spam. And people are now demanding that there be disclaimers whenever something is AI generated. Now, this call for authenticity is tied to the overall call for less commercialization today. Now, this is seen in the continual decline of engagement with broadcast and cable television as they experience new lows across the board of civil dissatisfaction with politics and concerts, sports, retail, and even nonprofits. Consumers feel the old adage of the customer comes first is long gone. The customer experience has been greatly downgraded. Customer service is painful and frustrating for so many people. And the cost of purchasing, whether it's tickets, services, or goods, are too high. And the marketing, well, in some alternate reality compared to the actual experience today. These points, along with myriad others, have created an overall environment of hostility and cynicism and indifference to corporate America that was already in existence, but has spilled over to other industries. And I'm going to call politics one of them. This is bad enough, but when coupled with spending a large amount of capital on advertising and marketing that is going to be met with mostly inattention or disdain, the challenge is daunting today. The CEO today, and by that I am not strictly referring to the head of a Fortune 500 ranked organization, but any head of any business should be willing and capable to be the face and the voice of the company. The CEO does not and should not be the only face and voice. That only exacerbates the problem and reinforces the worst assumptions of business today and business leaders. The CEO should be the primary figure, not just on the organizational chart. Having a CEO engage different target external audiences through various methods and media produces engagement so often missing today. Despite the low opinion by the public of business in general, the role of the CEO in America still holds weight and creates gravitas if used properly. A chief executive officer speaking on a podcast, commenting at a conference, being interviewed by media, offering thoughts in a blog or other written communications, a CEO who gives access and removes the curtain and delivers the optics of a company whose head is engaged, in touch, and mindful of issues, and connecting directly to the intended recipient is going to meet success. The public is looking for that. If an organization has a CEO so inclined to do such work, do not spoil it and make it all for nothing with some of the worst features of corporate or executive communications that never work externally, but make the internal isolation bubble of external leadership feel good with forced affirmation that they were successful as everyone else is holding their noses and rolling their eyes. Now, what do I mean by that? Let's take a look at some of the worst and stereotypical and cliche corporate communications methods that typically fail and in today's environment is practically a non-starter. Let's start with corporate talk. Now, we have all read it and we've heard it and we've hated it. The cliche business phrases that are as worn as vinyl records from the 1980s, highly specific industry jargon that is meaningless to everyone else or is tired and overused. Another one, legalese. All too often, businesses will give away too much leverage and influence to legal counsel, and the lazy, scared, and unimaginative executives will allow legal to become corporate communications and write, edit, and sometimes deliver messaging. Other than your lawyers and possible yes people who convince themselves it is great because they didn't have to write it, the communication is often meaningless and goes into the ether. It does nothing for the brand, nothing for the company, and certainly nothing for the organization's customers who hate lawyers to start, like most of the public. Now, I do want to add a disclaimer. There are, of course, times and circumstances that demand such communications as legalese. I have been involved in many of them, and a corporate communications or public relations professional certainly should know by instinct those occasions that call for such messaging. But it should not be the standard. The only people profiting is legal itself, and you can be sure everyone else is questioning your organization's over reliance on legalese and legal speak anyway. Now let's dive into another one, marketing. If your CEO is going out there and engaging various target audiences to represent the brand and personify the organization and build a corporate reputation, do not waste that with overly prepared comments and speeches and talking points that are just commercial and sound like an infomercial. Or, once again, the hard sell. Advertising and marketing have their spaces. This isn't one of them. Relative to the situation, of course, some key points, of course, can come from marketing or sales concerning a product or a value prop, pitch angle, but it should be minimal and then expanded on or supplemented by informal, real world speak to maintain interest and, once again, that authenticity that is sought after today. Let's add another one, a false voice. Many CEOs or executives do not have the skills or the temperament or the personality to do public speaking. And many of them dread the media. In our world today, though, being authentic also means not being overly rehearsed or polished. The most endearing and trusted business leaders are those who convey that beyond the title, they can have a conversation with you. They are not elitist or hiding behind an office door calculating golden parachutes, stock options, or bonuses, even if they are, of course. So if a CEO is entering the public arena, do not sabotage the effort by changing the voice of the executive. Rather, create the narratives, the talking points, comments, and communications that fit the person's style in real life. Use the quirkiness, the ambitious inner comedian, the cautious introvert, the easygoing extrovert, the analytical geek or the amateur historian, or whatever trait the CEO possesses, make it a strength. Incorporate it. Don't attempt to change it or heavily edit it or force expressions, words, or thoughts that do not match the individual because the public will see right through it. For our purposes, the CEO is the product here, as you would not attempt to change what the company's product is by comparing it to another or making it something that it is not, because that would be fraud. The same goes with your speaker. In our overly staged and choreographed world today of media and communications, anything authentic is fresh, valued, notable, and memorable, unlike that AI slop. So that's our discussion today on CEOs, communications in an AI world. I hope you enjoyed this. And if you want to dig deeper, I also just posted a long form article on the GeneKingLive.com website about Cracker Barrel and its historically bad rebranding. And in that article that you can find on GeneKingLive.com, as well as on Substack, on the Mediums, Messages, and More page, you will find that I do a deep dive not only into the rebrand for Cracker Barrel that was, a modern day business Hindenburg, but we also take a look at the missteps that were made by the executives and how they can turn this around. And some of that incorporates what we just talked about. So check that out when you have a chance too. And if you're interested, if you go to GeneKingLive.com or you go to Substack and you go to the Mediums, Messages, and More page, you're going to find the archives of all the podcast episodes as well as all of the newsletter articles that I've published so far. And I hope that you enjoy that and that you do check it out. So until next time, thank you for listening. And if you have comments, please go to GeneKingLive.com or go to Substack. And there's many ways to contact me with your thoughts and opinions and feedback, as well as if you have ideas for more new episodes too. Until next time, thank you for listening, and I will talk to you soon on the Mediums, Messages, and More podcast. Be well.